everybody, I think, you all have to click something on your screen that says it's okay that we're recording.
Say, got it? Do we press that?
You click on got it.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with something that doesn't look very Israeli, very religious. So let me share my screen. And there it is. And here we go. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
What are you looking at?
License plate.
Numbers are like a license.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
License plate.
That's what I wanted you to see. This is the Israeli license plate. And it's pretty much the color of New York, kind of a orangey and a black color. And if you have this license plate, you can go anywhere in Israel. However, this is the Palestinian license plate. And if you have this license plate, green on white, you are not allowed to go certain places in Israel. You are forbidden from crossing through certain barriers. Bethlehem is right outside of Jerusalem, but between the two, there is a wall. And the Palestinians are not allowed to go through that wall into Jerusalem. But the people, the Israelis in Jerusalem, can come through and go anywhere they want. So we left Bethlehem from the Church of the Nativity, and we went here. And I'm going to zoom in. It says, welcome to, and I'll zoom in on that. Can you read it? It's Ada Camp. And it's basically a reservation. It's like we did with the Indians. You can live on this property. And the Israelis, when they became a nation in 1948, took over the land, took over property. And it turned out there were people living there, and the Palestinians were living there. But the Israelis came in and said, you got to get out of your home and leave. And they just, in the middle of the night, they came and people just had to leave their homes and go wherever they could. And so eventually the Israelis created these camps where they could stay. And there was really basically nothing there. They started off living in tents. They were kicked out of their homes and they had to live in tents. They eventually began building some buildings there. It's not much of a place to look at. You'll see as we go up the streets, you can see the wall up there. You see it with barbed wire on the top.
Oh, yeah.
All it is, and
Now,
the barbed wire you see in the foreground right over in here, that's around somebody's property. But the wall and the barbed wire up top over here is where they're not allowed to go.
how long ago was this? Did that have happened?
Well, it happened in 1948 that they were kicked out. And then it's over the past, I guess it's past 10 or 15 years, they built this wall to keep people out because the Palestinians kept coming in and attacking because they want to move back onto their land. And the Israelis said, no, this is now our land. And so eventually the Israelis,
it was the intifada, which went on for 10 or 15 years, and it abates every once in a while, but it's been a creeping thing since the founding of Israel.
which is why there's still a lot of insecurity, why people have to go around with guns and things like that.
And surround their houses with barbed wire, right?
Right. And it turns out when the Israelis put up the wall, they encroached on the Palestinian land and kind of basically took 13% more of it than they had originally given.
Yeah.
So we went through, we parked way out by the main road and we walked in and we went up all these different streets and around corners and finally got to this one building and went upstairs, and there was this big dining room area, And if you look closely, you'll see that it's really a beautiful room. You see the lighting on the ceiling. This gentleman right here, I'm going to zoom in on him. You see him up there?
Yeah.
He's the one who built the entire room. It took him a couple of years to do it. And he did it for his wife and the children there in this camp. They have about 8,000 people living in the camp. And of that number, I think they said they have about 300 special needs children. And there's no help, no special schooling for special needs children. So the moms and the people of the camp have found ways to raise money to be able to hire people to come in and teach their children and work with them and give them physical therapy and things like that. So this is one of the places that they raise money. They have Palestinian meals and you get to help prepare the meal. And then you've paid for the meal and they tell you about their cause, and then they have a number of things to sell, scarves and coasters and crafts, Kay says. So you'll see we're going to sit down and have a typical Palestinian dinner. So this is the woman who is in charge of this kitchen, and she has a number of others. The kitchen is off to the right, and you'll see that in a minute. And we all heard the story about their children and appreciated the room that we were in that her husband had built. She's a very pleasant person, a little difficult to understand, but you know, that's just the English is not her first language, and so it was a little tough understanding her accent. But don't ask me all the different things that we made. I'm not that good with food, but we prepared some kind of a salad, and you can see the dough down here that we rolled up into little balls, and then they turned them into triangles of baked goodness with things inside them. So they're chopping up the ingredients to go in the salad. This guy here on the left, Rudy, is squeezing out the lemons to put on the salad. You can see down below the little balls of things that we made. I had a good time doing it. And there's their kitchen, not a built-in stove, but their stove on top. And they did all kinds of goodness there. These are what the little balls turned into. You can see them there.
Oh, yeah.
They were very good. And that's the green is a yogurt based dressing, I think, that went on the salad. And I'm not sure what she's making up top there right now.
Is this a lunch or a dinner or a breakfast?
It was a lunch. We went to the Church of the Nativity in the morning and then drove up and parked and walked up to this place and had lunch.
So is this what they do for different groups that come?
Yes.
And you pay for it, so that's how they make their money also?
Yes.
Mhm.
So
So
it's an experience.
he
Yeah.
built this whole with the marble and the kitchen and everything.
Yeah. He
Wow.
built this whole place.
The
And
chickens are in the backyard that they use.
oh, Kay says the chickens are in the backyard that they
Cool.
made lunch. And you'll see in a second, this guy, this is the one who built the room, pulled it out, and he's got a very heavy pot upside down. And then and this is a big deal, flips it over and pulls the pot off. And then there is the steaming concoction that's been made. It's mostly rice, and then there's chicken on top and vegetables mixed in.
Wow.
And you'll see it here in a second. There's what it looks like when it's made.
Oh,
Who wants to try that on Sunday?
And then there's
Wow.
a plate of food when we were done. So that's what we got to eat, and it was delicious.
It took about
That's
an
good.
hour and a half to make.
Kay says it took us about an hour and a half to put it all together and make the meal. So we were pretty hungry by the time it finally got served.
yeah.
And of course, afterwards there was cleanup and Look, there's Kay in the kitchen helping clean up.
All right.
Cleaning up.
This is an interesting thing. Most of the Palestinians have a key somewhere prominently displayed in their house, in this camp. And this is the key to their home of which they were kicked out of.
Oh,
It's symbolic of them wanting to go home, back to where they originally were. Now, remember, this is now what, 60, 70 years ago that this happened? But they all have the key in their house, and our guide pointed out that most of the houses that they were displaced from no longer exist. So it's really more now just a symbol of wanting their own place rather than living on a reservation or in a camp. As we're leaving, you can see the wall and the checkpoint that we had to go through. So now we're back overlooking from the town of Bethlehem. We're looking out to the hill of the shepherds. And out there is where the shepherds were that were approached by the angels late at night while the shepherds were out abiding in their fields by night. You know that story, right?
yep.
You probably heard that one before. There were some shepherds in the field. So we drove on through over to this church that was over there. I don't have a picture of the outside of it, but here's on the inside. You can see the angels. And apparently this church is like supposedly right where the shepherds were sitting out there late at night with their flocks. Inside the church are a number of paintings. Here is a picture of the angels coming and telling the shepherds the good news. It's just a picture of the shepherds, and you can see that this is set back. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back to that real quick, if I can. There we go. Just a picture of the shepherds out in the hills. And I think it's this next one that shows Jesus being born in the stable and in the manger. And I think you'll be able to see where it's set in the church. Let me know if I'm going too fast, or if you have any questions or comments. I can see a few of you, but I won't be able to see hands raised. So if you want to make a comment.
Is there like in Italy, Picasso, is there a certain artist that, or just is this a random?
I don't know who did this or who put up the church, but my guess is it's the Franciscans, because almost everywhere we went where there were a church nearby, it was often the Catholic Franciscans.
So is this a painting or is that mosaic?
No, that's a painting inside the area there.
Okay.
And outside the little chapel there and around a corner is a cave. And they said that this cave would be where they probably would have slept at night with the sheep outside. It was not a big cave, but in one of the insets in the wall, they've built this little tableau in there so that you can see what it would have probably looked like on that night. Just some artist's imagination of that night. But it's in a little low ceiling cave that is right nearby. And now this is on the hillside looking back at Bethlehem. Obviously back in that day, it wouldn't have been built up as big as that, but you can see about how far they would have had to go to get to Bethlehem to find the child.
Wow.
Oh. Wow.
Now, there's nothing religious about this, but as I said, Palestine, the Palestinians live in this Bethlehem area. Some of them are in the camps. Some of them are just in the town. It depends on what your license plate is, where you can come and go in Israel. But there are Palestinians who live in Jerusalem. And so I asked our guide, why is it that some Palestinians are in Jerusalem and some of them are outside it and can't come in? And he said, it all depends on where you lived at the time that Israel became a nation. If you were in Jerusalem, you got displaced. If you were already living outside Jerusalem, you were just able to stay in your home or build a home. But this entire area is still controlled by the Israelis. You see this white water tower up on top of the house? The Israelis distribute the water to them. They don't have indoor plumbing. That's how much they get every 3 weeks. They're
Oh,
limited on how much water they get. And
Does it rain there?
not a lot,
Oh,
not a lot. We were there in the rainy season. We had a couple of days of
Misting.
misting, and we had one day where there was a bit of a downpour, but not even the full day. And that was the rainy season. So most of the time there's very, very little water, and the Israelis are in charge of it. So the Palestinians still feel kind of under the thumb of the Israelis. And you'll see in a number of, I don't know if I have pictures, but when you're there, you see a number of houses with solar panels on the roof so that they can store up some electricity, because I think electricity is doled out as well.
so that they use that for, all of their needs plus like their yard? I mean, do they have to water any plants or anything?
There aren't many plants in the yards.
No.
Israel is, I don't want to categorize the entire country, but we saw a lot of trash, especially in the camp, because
Yeah.
they don't, it's not really, I guess it's now their home, but they don't consider it their permanent home, and they're still hoping to get other places. And it's kind of a rundown country in a lot of ways.
landscape is not their importance, I
No,
guess.
this-
Well, no, it actually is. They waste an enormous amount of water, like in the major cities. The dividers between the highways all have sprinkling systems, and it's a desert country, but they waste a lot of water because it's the Israelis' water, and they try to keep it from the Palestinians. It's a
Right.
political issue.
I was just going to say, Joanne is making the point about what Israel itself can do for itself, but not for the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And this is a very unusual picture, because this looks like a single family home. And we saw almost none the entire time we were in Israel. It's all giant apartment buildings or duplexes or, multiple family homes that are connected to each other.
And they're all the same color.
Yeah, and everything is the
It's
same
either
color.
Light tan or dark tan.
Dark tan or light tan. And I was like, how come nobody paints their house, like blue or pink or something? I've been to Bermuda. It's a happy place. Everybody's got different color homes, and nope, they just go with this.
Wow.
We're driving through now Bethlehem, and it's a very hilly place. And our bus driver took us up and down a few streets that we weren't sure we were ever going to be able to get back out of. You can see a solar panel up on the roof over here. And if I zoomed in, you'd probably see those little water tanks on each of these homes in here. So we went to an olive wood carver's shop. Our guides know this guy, and they've been in touch with him over the past few years. Turns out we were the second group in 2 years to come to his shop. So they've been hurting quite a bit for tourists and for people to come and spend their money. But they took us to this shop because they wanted us, if we were going to buy anything from Israel, and olive wood is one of their main things that they carve and sell. They wanted us to know that it came from Bethlehem, from an olive wood carver, not something that you might accidentally see made in China listed on the bottom.
So are these Palestinians or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And these are some of the early unfinished pieces.
Wow.
This is wood?
Yes, it's made out of olive wood. So
Wow.
everything they make is out of olive wood. Here he is sitting there, and he's crafting things, and you can see pieces on the shelf over here and some unfinished pieces on the table. He has just it's a little spinny ball at the end of almost like a wand. And that whole thing, you can see this is it right here. And
Yeah.
it attaches to this machine that spins it. And he just uses the tip and he uses it to carve in and you know, create what he creates.
Wow.
It almost looks like a clay or a stone.
Yeah, but it's wood.
Huh.
It kind of reminds me at the fair, how you have those guys that carve things out of, those saws.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, look at all these are unfinished pieces on his shelf. And I'm sorry, I don't have any pictures of pieces in his shop, which was right next door. This is the place where he's doing the carving, and he had a couple other people working in there as well. And then on the other side of that wall is his shop. And I don't
Look at
have any finished pieces to show you. However, what I do have, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second, so you
I
can
mean,
see
if
my
you
picture.
look at the details on those,
Yeah. And I'll put it
envelope.
back up in a second.
It's amazing to see how detailed it is.
I mean, you could see the folds, like in the folds of their clothing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me just show you this. While I was there, I knew I would be teaching a Lenten class. And so I got a bag of Christmas ornaments, and I have one of these each for everybody who's in my Lenten class.
Ah,
Aren't-
cool.
Aren't you glad now that you signed up for the class?
Wow.
You're going to get a piece of olive wood to hang on your tree from Bethlehem,
Oh, my
thank
goodness.
you.
Thank you.
and hand carved in Bethlehem. You know, you
Oh
might
my
get,
goodness.
a little nativity. You might get a star.
Oh,
I love it. Do they smell like pine would
yeah.
smell?
No, they smell like olive wood. Doesn't smell piney, but yeah, it definitely smells like wood. So
Oh,
when I see you next, or I might have to get your address, Barbara, and I will stick it in a little envelope and mail it to you.
well, thank you.
Everybody
You
gets
know-
That's special. Thank you.
As beautiful as the intricate stuff were, the whole Bethlehem Square is souvenir shops selling olive wood as bookmark and tchotchkes and stuff like that. I mean, it's a major tourist,
Industry.
commodity.
everywhere we went, every store, every souvenir shop had olive wood pieces.
Mhm.
And you knew that it was just olive wood in a store. But that's why they took us here, because you could see that this was olive wood from Bethlehem, made by a wood carver right there.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at the faces. Oh,
Yeah.
His brother would, or somebody else would stain it. There were all just different sections. And so the one carved it, the other would stain it, another one would take it for it to be dried, and it would have to sit there for so long. But they had a whole system down, but it was all within the family.
Yeah. Can you imagine having a nativity set of these?
Where's ours?
How
That is,
tall are they? Are they like a foot high or 9 inches or what? I can't tell.
I'm disturbing Kay from her rest because we bought a piece while we were
Oh.
there, and she's gonna go see if she can find it. Oh, she said, I know where it is.
of course she does. She knows right where it is.
Exactly. Because she,
They look pretty
yeah,
big.
Joanne asked how tall they are. Are they like 12 inches or?
those, yeah, they're probably about a foot.
Mhm.
You can
Yeah,
see
they look big.
not as a full shelf, but they're not real tiny. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna stop sharing again so you can see my,
They have all different sizes though.
okay, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
turn on a light, or if I can reach it. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. There it is, the nativity.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Now, that's made out of the wood and he carved inside. It's all one piece?
All one
It's
piece.
not,
No, it's not all one piece. I checked it out, Kay.
Oh, really?
The pieces are pre-carved and then set inside.
Okay.
ah,
Yeah,
But turn it over so you can see the back. how
but
good-
here's the back of it. You know, it's just, you can see it's just cut out
Like
of
rough,
wood, and then
Yeah.
there's his card on the bottom. But it's just a piece of wood,
Oh, no, I'm full.
you know,
wow,
just a piece of wood, but then they carved it out and put the pieces in it.
that's cool.
Is the olive trees only grown there, or do we have anything like that around?
Well, there are olive trees all over the world, but it's a big part of the economy of Israel.
They're also very much about hospitality. So he showed us the carving and all that. And not too long after that, they brought a huge tray out of tea with mint in it. And, you know, made sure each one of us had it, whether we wanted it or not. You know, but that's just part of who they are. And he said, he gave us his card and he said, if you ever are back here, you call me, you can stay at my house.
Oh,
And
wow.
our tour guide said he actually means it because they've done it. So pretty amazing.
So is he considered wealthy? I mean,
Well, not right now, because they haven't had any business really for a couple of years.
yeah,
So he's,
No, and he doesn't have much. Heather, our tour guide, said it's not as though he's a wealthy person. He's a kind, loving person that
Mhm.
loves what he does and loves people being there to see his country and his craft.
yeah, and he's like third or fourth generation wood carver. So it's been
wow.
family, and his children will be, you know, learning the craft as well.
But
Okay,
economically, he's better off than most Palestinians.
yes.
Oh,
The
yeah, that's what I
Palestinians,
meant, yeah.
have a real hard time getting jobs. There's high unemployment. It's very difficult for them. Okay, so that's day 3. Now we've still got day 4 and 5 to go. So we're almost halfway through our time. So I'm gonna pick this up a little bit. Sunday morning, we went to a nearby Lutheran church to worship. And this is their stained glass window up above, and you'll see it behind her where she's preaching. That was the stained glass window up there. It was the first Sunday of Lent, and she gave a very good sermon. This is the chapel there. It's the Lutheran chapel, it's the Lutheran church there.
Jeff, we only see
Yeah,
us.
we can't see it. You didn't put it back on
Oh, well, let me share again.
the.
Sorry about that. I'm moving on without you, aren't I? Okay, let me go back. So this is the chapel that we were in. Do you see it now?
Yep,
Yes.
Okay, this is the chapel we were in, and we filled up about a third of the pews just with our group. We had 22 from the Austin church and the 2 of us, and then a number of international people came and worshiped there. And she had people introduce themselves, and it was interesting to hear where they're from. This is the stained glass window up above where she's preaching. That was up there. And like I said, she gave a very good sermon. It was very, very motivating. She didn't stand behind a pulpit. She did it all just with no notes or anything.
Yes, preaching too.
She's a part-time person there. And this is, they not only in this church do they have English speaking, but they also have the Arabic speaking. And this minister does one of their services over in the main sanctuary. This is their chapel. And I think they also have a German service. And I tried to go in to get a picture, but they were having church and I got shooed out by an usher. No sightseeing, no pictures. Be gone.
Where was this church?
It's right downtown Jerusalem, not far from where we were staying. It's about a block and a half away from Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
It almost looks like whoever built the stonework wanted a door behind him. Looks like an arch of,
Okay, now I have to put up a video after lunch that day, let me see if I can share this one. I don't know if it'll share or not because it's a video. Can you see those young men?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to play it.
This looks like a flash mob, whatever they call that.
It's over in a second. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that. That was right on the plaza, right outside the gate of where we were staying in our hotel. And it was a youth group or a youth organization. And when we stopped and started enjoying it, they came right up to us with a hat and wanted donations. Okay, let me find the, let's pick it back up. And let me share this. Again, I go back to sharing. And this is not an aerial photo. This is a diorama. That afternoon, after going to church in the morning and having lunch and then walking down to the bus past the youth who were singing and dancing, we then went to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum. And this is a tableau of the complex. Our bus parked right in here. You can see some little tiny buses down there. Can you see where I'm pointing?
Yes.
Okay. This is the visitor center where you come in and pay, and they have a little cafeteria down in the basement down here. And then you walk across this walkway here, and you see this triangle shape and how it goes into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's the museum.
Hmm.
It's really interesting, the shape of it. And you walk in and you start here, and they show you a little video in this end, and then you go to this side and then back over to that side and this side and that side. And most of it's underground, back to this side, that side, until you finally finish down at this end. So you get to experience the Holocaust from beginning to end. This is, you can see, this is the walkway over to the triangular building.
Mm-hmm.
That's the side. The triangle is here on the end. And now you can see it's beginning to go under the underground for a lot of it. And you enter right in here. So this is, before we got to that, this is the visitor center going in. You can see the visitor center there.
Who built this?
The Israelis, this
Mhm.
is them wanting to make sure that no one forgets. And they want you, they urge you at the end of your time being there to hopefully have taken pictures, share the story with others, spread the word about what happened so that it will never happen again. So here we are going in. And inside, I'll show you some pictures, but I don't know that I can narrate each one. The thing that I really want to tell you is that really struck me was our guide who knows this museum and has been in it probably hundreds of times, taking groups and visiting himself, was that the Germans had a hierarchy of living animals, living beings. And Aryans, of course, were at the top of that list, and then other races were below it, and then animals were on that list. And where on that list, he asked us, do you think Jews fell?
Very bottom.
Any other guesses?
Below the animals.
Below the animals. His answer was surprising. We came up with those same guesses. Jews were not even on the list.
Oh,
They were not considered human beings or or creatures worth taking care of or anything. They were like embodied demons. And when World War I was lost by the Germans, years later, Hitler started to come into power. And even though Jews were only like 1.7% of the population of Germany, they became the whipping boy for why the Germans lost World War I. It was blamed on the Jews that they had stabbed them in the back and not supported the war, not done anything, and that they were actually evil, and it was up to them to rid the world of Jews, because and they thought they considered that they were doing the world a favor by getting rid of Jews, because they weren't human, they weren't even animal-like. They were less than any of those things. So they took us through the slow progression of how the Jews were at first just humiliated in certain ways and blamed for things, and then more and more having their rights removed and stripped away. And finally, one of the things that kind of was a tipping point was one of their higher ups in the government was in Paris visiting, and a Jew killed him. And that enraged the Germans. And have you ever heard of Kristallnacht?
Mhm.
That it stands for Crystal Night or Glass Night. The Germans then felt like they had free reign after their official had been killed by a Jew to go ahead and kill as many Jews as they could, and to destroy their businesses and smash all the glass and break and burn down their businesses, and then begin to take them out of their cities. And they had one city that should have held about 45,000, and they walled it in, and they put the Jews in this city. They put 450,000 of them in the city, and they were walled in, and they had no food and they had no water. And pretty soon they were dying of starvation, and the Germans didn't know what else to do with them. And pretty soon they started shipping them out to camps, and they came up with the concentration camp model and began wiping out the Jews. And so we learned the story as we went back and forth down that triangular building, seeing all the different things and how one step at a time it got worse and worse. And you can see down at the bottom that Hitler is dealing with young people, and they were training them even from a very early age about how Jews were less than human. At one point, the Germans decided that they were going to figure out what exactly it was that defined a Jew physically. And so they would measure their temples, they would measure how long their nose was, they would measure the distance between the eyes, and they came up with a list of dimensions of a Jew, which terrorized the entire German population, because they didn't want to be classified as a Jew and be ostracized from society and sent off. And eventually they discarded this because they found out that that Jews really had the same dimensions as everybody else. But for a while, it terrorized everybody.
Oh,
And killing women and children was a bit of a priority for them, because then that just saved the world from having a Jew grow up and turn into an adult demon. This is an artist's rendering of the gas chamber and all the people. They would. It was really interesting. They pointed out that the pretense of what was happening was to be maintained up until the very last second. So they had people in the concentration camps they forced them to write postcards and letters back to their loved ones back in Germany, in other places in Germany, in the cities, saying, yes, we've been taken off to this wonderful place. And it, you know, at your earliest convenience, please come and join us and you'll love it here. And they sent those off. And so when people got these letters and then they were rounded up and put in train cars to go off to these concentration camps, they did so willingly until they were put in a boxcar for 5 days without the door being opened and jamming 90 people in a car where they couldn't sit down. There was not enough room. People died standing up. And then they were sent off to the concentration camps. And even as they were being put into gas chambers, they were told stories about, you know, well, we need you to take your clothes off and go in there. And then, of course, they piled up the clothes and used them in Germany and sold their shoes and their glasses. And afterwards, there were dentists who would come into the gas chambers and go through people's mouths and pull out gold fillings. One of the most heartbreaking parts was this particular section of the museum. It's in a separate section from that triangular place. You go outside and you go down through a little tunnel area and into this building, and it's super dark. And then they put up pictures of the children that were killed. And there's a voice repeating their name and where they were from in English and in Hebrew and in Yiddish continually. It just goes 24/7 of all the different children that were killed. And then you walk through this room of lights, and each light is for a child, and you can look back and see faces. And it's a little disorienting, but very moving. This is our guide, Alan Rabinowitz, telling us about what we've just seen and helping us debrief a little bit afterwards. Very, very moving. So that's day 3. I'm going to move on to, let's see. Let's put up this one and see if I can hear it.
You know, you hear, I mean, you read about this and you hear stories about this, but to be there and to see this had to be just so emotional.
Well, Israel itself is a bit of a world reaction to the Jews and what they suffered in World War II. You know, the war is over in 45, 46, and the Jews for a good 75 years had a Zionist movement trying to have a presence back in the Israel area, and it had been resisted and stopped. And in 48, the UN said, well, we'll give you these 2 or 3 little spaces. And the Israelis finally said, no, we're just going to take the whole area. And they moved in and took it over. And nobody said anything after what they had just gone through.
Yeah.
So this now is us coming down the next morning and walking down through the city. You can see us on the left going down the stairs here and looking out over the center of Jerusalem. And you see the Temple Mount up here, and this is the Dome of the Rock. If you look across over here, this is the Mount of Olives that we looked at last week, and looking back at the Dome of the Rock.
The skyline in this photo is beautiful, really.
Yeah, I took a panoramic picture, and I think this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get it to go to the next picture, and I can't.
What is special about the Dome of the Rock in the Dome of the Rock? I mean, what is that? What happened on that rock?
On that rock in the 600s is where the Muslims believe Muhammad, from that rock, ascended to heaven and was given by the angel Gabriel the text for the Quran. And the angels lowered him back down to that spot right there, which is where the temple, the Jewish temple, used to be, that had been knocked down in 70 AD by the Romans. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But this spot is very holy because as each group comes in and takes over, they knock down a lot of the holy places of the group that was there before them, and they would build their own. So for a while over this spot would have been a Roman temple to their various gods. And then eventually that got torn down, and now the Muslims come in and they put up this Dome of the Rock. It's their third most holy place after Mecca and Medina.
Isn't the Temple Mount, isn't that like an international zone now? It's not really owned by the Palestinians or the Israelis. It's kind of like a neutral territory.
Not really. It's owned by the Israelis, but when they took over in the 7-Day War in 1967, they took over all of Jerusalem rather than just part of it. But they said they had an agreement that whoever was in charge of this area was allowed to continue to be in charge of it. And the Muslims were in charge of it at the time. So the Muslims still control the Temple Mount.
Oh, okay.
So we're not down here yet. This is actually a later picture looking up. We came in to the right up here up top, and then walked across this bridge and into and through the wall to the Temple Mount. This is the western wall of the Temple Mount, and we're going to walk through the wall into the temple area. But I just wanted you to see where we were walking, how we got there. And before we went up that ramp and through the wall, we stopped, and this is where an area where you go through security, and the Israelis still control this part before you get up to the Temple Mount. So they want you to know that where the Dome of the Rock is, this is where their Jewish temple used to lie. And this is a model of the temple. Outside of the temple would have been the court of the Gentiles out, around it. Anybody who wasn't Jewish was allowed around it. Inside here, this section would be the court of women. This is as far as the women were allowed to go. In here is where men and priests were allowed to go. And then going around and behind it and into this area behind it is the Holy of Holies, which the priest was only allowed into one time a year on the Day of the Atonement. So they wanted us to see this model of the temple before we go in, because you're not allowed to take anything religious in there. You can't wear crosses. You cannot carry a Bible. They might search your stuff and see if you're bringing in leaflets or anything like that. So it's very, very controlled before you get up to the Temple Mount, because the Muslims are in control of it. So this is looking from the end. This would be the court of the Gentiles outside, the court of women. Inside here, the men and the priests, and then behind it would be where the Day of Atonement was celebrated. And one more overhead shot. Okay. So now this is us going up that ramp and looking down on the western wall. And this is where people pray, and you can see all the different groups that are down here and upper against the wall. This is the court. This is the women's section over here. It is still segregated. And this is where men and priests are allowed to go. We'll see that again closer up a little later. When you come through that gate, this is the temple, would have been the temple-like administration building. You're going to see later again, and we showed this in church where we sat on the steps, that when you come up to the Temple Mount, you would come up to this area and they would inspect your offerings, any sacrifices that you had bought outside and were bringing in. They would approve them before you went to the temple to make your sacrifice. This is now that building is behind us, and you're looking across. You remember from the Mount of Olives, we looked across and saw that big white square?
Mm-hmm.
This is that big white square that Herod built. And you can see how large it is and how far away the Dome of the Rock is and where people are walking. Right in this section here in the middle, we're going to get a close-up of this. This is where, and now we're not talking Jewish, we're talking Muslim. They can sit and ritually cleanse themselves. And here's another place with seats and a place to wash, ritually wash yourself. And you can see the Dome of the Rock up here, again, where the Jewish temple would have been. So now we're walking up towards it. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. And that golden dome you can see all over Jerusalem. So there's
Wow.
two of us looking at it. Apparently, this section, this lower section is original. And then years later, they would have added more mosaics up top. And if I can zoom in and you can see it, you can see that it's each, you know, it's a mosaic. It's little
Oh,
pieces
it's
built.
beautiful.
You can just see how much care and effort went into building this and making it look nice.
You're not allowed to touch anybody, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
While you're there, you cannot show affection. So we could stand next to each other, but you're not allowed to hold hands. They have Muslim guards up there that will walk over and smack your hand. You're not allowed to kiss or anything up there. It's a holy site. So be very, very respectful. As a little zoomed in shot of it. And another picture. And you see this little gazebo almost over here on the side?
Mm.
I believe they told us that they don't know what that was for. I thought it might be where they would have like the wedding reception afterwards, you know?
You were not allowed in?
No,
No.
no, not at all. You could just walk up to it and walk around it and see it from different angles.
Wow.
Zoomed in shot of the very top of it.
Were Muslim women allowed in?
Nobody was going in. I don't know if they only go in on certain holy days or what, but nobody was going in and out. This is looking back at the Mount of Olives from up on the Temple Mount. Remember that Russian church with the golden onion domes up
Yep.
above it? And, you know, up in here are the Mount of Olives, and Gethsemane would have been down here near the bottom.
I'm getting to know my bearings here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when you look at that picture, you know, that it's what you picture in your mind of what it looks like, right? I
Yep.
mean, that's crazy.
And just outside of Jerusalem. And this would have been the gate right along, I mean, the wall right along here. And of course, there wouldn't have been buildings and hotels and things up here. It would have just been a hillside and lots of olive trees and
Yeah.
Mount of Olives. Here,
Wow.
outside of this is on the back side of it now. We've walked about 180 degrees around. Is just an area of rock that is original to the hill that hasn't been paved over. See it again from a little different angle. We left there and went on down into this alleyway, just outside of the wall, and they served us Arabian coffee down there.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to ask Kay, what did you think of Arabian coffee?
Oh my gosh. Because there's
It's
no cream.
mud.
Yeah, it's mud. There's no cream, there's no sugar, it's just acid.
Oh,
Is it like espresso or
No.
whatever?
Yeah,
No.
like a double espresso or
No.
something.
Mud.
No, it's much worse than an espresso. An espresso has flavor to it. This tastes like acid. It's
oh,
horrible. And the cup is really, really, really tiny because they don't want to kill you.
And it's like grains at the bottom. It's
So
awful.
it would give you the coffee, you know, zing
Buzz.
that
Yeah, this was their energy drink.
get back down the mountain. Hooey.
So we came around the corner and we had to go through security again to be able to get to the Western Wall. And now we're at the Western Wall. The Temple Mount is up top here. That's the administration building over in this side. The Dome of the Rock would have been over here. We came out over here on the side through security. And then this is the Western Wall. That wall there, the white wall there, protects the men from the women, or protects the women from the men. I'm not sure what everybody's afraid of, but the women had to go and be able to pray at the wall
In
on
an
the other
Orthodox
side.
synagogue, the men are separated from the women.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there you can see there's another place to be able to ritually cleanse yourself. And here is where they had a box of yarmulkes that you could borrow. And then when you're done, please return it. And this is what you look like when you're wearing one. And you can see people behind me going up to the wall. You were allowed to write a prayer on a piece of paper or for a person or something, and then place it in the wall. This is again looking down. You can see the women's side and the men's side.
Chad?
Yes.
So-
Yeah, the wall, excuse me, the wall, is that the Wailing Wall or is that?
That's the way it's the Wailing Wall. It's the Western Wall.
Okay.
Yes.
Kay, how did you feel? I know you had female members that you knew went with you, but did it feel weird to do that when Jeff's gone on the male side?
No, it didn't feel weird because everybody was doing it. And we all just went on our own and then we met afterwards. So like you could stay there and pray or meditate or do anything you wanted to. So it really wasn't a group thing because of that, you know?
Mhm.
That's weird. That's wild to have that strictness, that kind of thing.
But in the Orthodox, in the Jewish Orthodox Church, even in Manhattan, women are separated from men.
Well,
The
I
only
did that in St. Mary's Store of the Sea. The girls had to sit on one side and the boys had to sit on the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
So now down around the base of the Western Wall and all the way around, now we're looking also at the Southern Wall. They're doing archaeological digs because this is 2,000 years ago and some of it goes back further. And so they're constantly working on the area. And this is the area. This is the Southern Wall. So the Western Wall is to our left. And they're constantly doing archaeology all over Israel, finding more and more different sites. Again, now that we're at the Southern Wall, we're looking back towards the Mount of Olives, which would have been that hill and maybe a little to the left of it. All those things there in the middle. Remember, we saw the graveside boxes.
Yeah.
So now this is what the Temple Mount would have looked like in Jesus' time. Okay, I'm trying to bring this to a close, and we may have to pick this up. But let me finish with just this one little section, because we did start a little after 7, so we'll go a little after 8. These are the steps where you're going to see that we sit, and here would have been the entrance that took you up inside, up to this administration building, and then across over to where the temple was. Here's another way in. You have this long street that goes along here. And now this section up here is the Western Wall that is still uncovered. And you're going to see what it looks like down here in this lower section of the Western Wall that isn't really, people don't use it for prayer and things like that. That's up in this upper section. But you'll see what it looks like down here. And even maybe a little bit of the remnants of where the set of stairs going in was. They believe that under these stairs or somewhere along this street here is where Jesus would have overturned the money changers table, where people went in and up to the Temple Mount on Passover. So now you can see the actual wall.
Originally,
Say that again?
was the road around it originally a moat to protect to cast the walls?
No, it was a street. It was a well-traveled street. And there are aqueducts underneath it that carried water. Somebody said, why would they build Jerusalem on this little plateau of land with no river going by? And it's because there's an underground river that flows underneath Jerusalem that they were able to tap into. You can't really, most cities aren't built just out in the middle of nowhere. They're built alongside a source of water. and that was the source of water. So you'll see in a second that there's a place where there's stairs down to the aqueducts or the waterways underneath Jerusalem.
If I recall correctly, I mean, most people pay attention to the Western Wall and all that stuff, the Wailing Wall, but each of the north, south, east, and west sections of the wall have their own like individual history and significance, I believe.
Yeah.
Look at them digging
Most of which-
underneath those tents.
Yep. The
Yeah.
archaeology is going on even as we're walking by. You can look under there and see them working away. So they're digging out more of what's below the surface of Israel. Look at this. Look at these two pieces of stone. Can you see how it's one piece of stone that goes from here all the way back to there? It's about 30 feet long. It's one piece and it's 30 by 30. It's not just that way. And the one below it is the same. And yet they even took the time to kind of chisel out a little bit of square in it to make it look good. The amount of manpower and ingenuity and engineering to be able to build this wall around Jerusalem is
Without
incredible.
cranes or anything.
Yeah.
Manpower.
They would put it on logs and roll it or something. I don't know exactly how, but I mean, look at that piece of rock. It's just amazing.
That's one of many.
That's one of many. Not all of them were that long and that tall, but look how tall it is. This is looking up the wall.
Yeah.
And you can see a little bit of where the stairs came out of the side of it and around and underneath which Jesus did was with the money changers. So here you can see that it's this piece all along here and all along here, and look at this one above it. Amazing.
Besides Joanne and John, and has anybody else gone to this area ever?
Yeah, I was there once, but it was a work trip, but I did go to the wall and parts of Jerusalem. It was a long time ago.
Good. And you were asking about this street outside the wall, and was it a water thing? No, you can see how it would have been a busy street underneath these stairs. That's a artist's depiction of what it would have looked like. This again is looking up, and you can see where the stairs would have met the wall, and it's
Oh, yeah.
been put in. This is standing on the street, and this is rubble when the Romans came and destroyed the temple in 70 AD. The Jews had revolted against the Romans, who'd been there for about 90 years, conquering them, and they just got fed up and they revolted against them. They had a big battle there at Jerusalem, and eventually the Romans broke in and destroyed the temple, and the people fled down this road trying to get away, being massacred all along the way. You can see there's some etching in one of the pieces of stone. I'm wrapping it up. Here you can see a little bit of the stairs, and I think the next picture shows you stairs down to the waterways underneath it. Apparently, a lot of the Jews went down there and went south, trying to get away from the Romans. And this is the street, and there's the set of stairs. So I'm going to end it right there with the Western Wall, and there really wasn't much more. There was a little bit. We went to see a synagogue and a little bit of the Via Dolorosa, the road of sorrows, where Jesus walked on during his crucifixion, on his way to being crucified. But we'll pick that up next week and squeeze that in before we do another couple of days. Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Hope
Very
you get a
special.
sense of what it was like for us and what it's like there in Israel.
It's very special with Lent this time doing this.
Stop sharing. And thank you all for coming out and joining us. And I will
Thank
put
you.
Barbara, good luck to Ernie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope his surgery
night.
goes well, and everybody will be getting one of these.
Yay.
Who's having surgery?
Bye. Thank you.
Ernie's having his leg stripped, but not until the end of April. Ernie,
Who?
my husband.
Is having what?
his leg stripped. His left leg the veins have to be taken out.
Oh, no.
no.
Oh, I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
sorry about
Oh,
that.
we'll be praying.
Well, thank you. That's not till the end of April, so we still have a little time to go.
Okay. All righty.
Love you all. Have a
Okay.
good week.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good
See you next
night.
Have a
week.
great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.